Well, folks, I sold 6 figures worth of a stock here today, folks. We're going to get into what stock I sold, why I decided to make this decision. Obviously, a very tough decision whenever you're looking to sell a stock, and kind of go through my whole thought process. I thought about it last night. I considered it heavily, and I said, you know what? If I still feel the same when I wake up in the morning, then I'm going to make that decision. And I woke up this morning and felt more confident than ever that that was the right decision for me to make. And so 6 figures, it's a big sell here today, folks. Not small whatsoever. And you know, if there's one critique I've definitely gotten throughout the years on the YouTube channel, it's like I've seen it a million times over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. You always talk about stocks you're buying, you never talk about stocks you're selling. And to be quite frank, as a long-term investor, I'm not selling stocks very often. So there's not very many opportunities for me to sell a stock. So a video like this is a rare video you're going to see on the channel. I mean, think about it like this, right? I mean, look at a perfect example as a stock like Meta. I've been buying the stock for years. Not for weeks, not for days, not for months, for years. I first started buying Meta in the public count back in 2018. 2018. And I've bought shares as recently as November 29th, 2022 in this account, right? So there's not an opportunity to make a selling video because it's not a stock I'm interested in selling whatsoever. It's like a long-term hold, and if anything, I buy more shares as the years tick on, especially when there's any massive dips like we got last year, right? You go to a stock like Tesla, right? I got shares all the way back from 2019 in regards to Tesla. I got shares I bought in 2023 in regards to Tesla. You look at a stock like ELF, the ELF shares I got in there, I bought those shares way back in 2019. Look at a stock like Skyworks Solutions. I was buying the stock all the way back in August of 2018. And I bought shares as recently as, less than a month ago, right? May 12th, 2023. So the fact is, as a long-term investor, I'm usually buying out there. So it's not usually very often on me selling and making a video like this, because it doesn't happen very often, but we are in that situation here today. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you get some real good value out of this. And it gets you a little bit into my thought process of why I sell a stock, why I decided to cash some shares here, and kind of how I think about this, which it is a big subject. A lot of people, you're going to buy a stock, and here's what's going to happen. You're either going to take a gain or a loss on the stock. And so, how do you get to that decision to either take that gain or take that loss in the stock, okay? So there's 3 main reasons why I sell a stock, ever, okay? These are the 3 reasons. The first one is if the company's gone fundamentally bad, okay? This could mean a lot of different things. That could mean the financials have gotten really bad for the company. That could mean the management team has gotten much worse and way worse than you anticipated. Basically, the company, what you thought was going to happen, didn't happen. You were wrong, okay? And I can tell you certainly there's been plenty of stocks over the last 15 years that I just got wrong, right? And the fundamentals didn't play out the way I thought they were going to play out. And things got worse and worse and worse. And so eventually you have to say, this isn't working. It's just the story's getting worse and worse and worse. And at some point in time, you got to cut it, right? And usually when things are getting fundamentally worse over 2-3 quarters, usually that's when you want to pull the trigger and say, you know what, I'm about done with this story. I'm moving on to better, brighter stocks, because there's thousands of stocks in the stock market, right? And if there's one thing I battle with is a strong... It's tough when you're a long-term investor and you're thinking long-term, but a company's coming in with the fundamentals getting worse and worse to make that decision to go ahead and cut, okay? Now, in this particular stock situation, it was not a fundamentals bad situation, okay? Not at all in regards to this. Good management team. Actually, the fundamentals are getting a little bit better, at least in the short term for this company. I do have a little worries about the long term, okay? Number 2, de-risking portfolio. So this can be a scenario where you're just too heavy into a position and you're looking and you're thinking about the risk in regards to that, what it means to your overall portfolio. So let's say, you got 20% in a stock and you think that stock's severely overvalued. Let's say there's a situation where you think there's major competitive threats that could really jeopardize that business model. Let's say there's major legal problems that company could risk. And you're like, I need to de-risk. That's an opportunity there, right? And the third way that I would usually sell a stock is if I buy a stock and it's in no man's land. What does this mean essentially? This is when I start buying a position into a stock, maybe put $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 into it, and then maybe it starts going up a bunch right away, and I'm kind of looking out there and I see a lot better opportunities, and maybe I got an opportunity to take a 20%, 30%, 40% profit in a pretty quick amount of time. And it's a stock that I'm like, I don't really want to buy it up here. I started my position hoping it would go lower. Instead, it went the other way. And now it's in no man's land and I don't really want to build it bigger. Then I'll go ahead and sell a stock like that, okay? And so, to give you some examples of these so you guys can have some context of like stocks I've sold in the past that would fit these different criteria. I have some examples for you, okay? Can you guess the fundamentals bad stock, okay? Please, I hope you can guess that stock, okay? The fundamentals bad stock, a great example of that is, unfortunately, the Chef, okay? That was one I just got wrong, and this business model just continued to get worse. The management team, just continue to run that business worse and worse and worse. Financials continue to get worse, and at the end of the day, it's like at some point you got to cut it loose. And that was obviously a good example of fundamentals just went really bad. Number 2, de-risking a portfolio. That is this particular stock where this was too heavy of a position. There's major risk for the stock, and so I decided to de-risk here. The third reason, no man's land, NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA was a good example of a stock I bought in the past, and I bought some shares into it, and then those shares were, doing pretty well. It was kind of no man's land, and I decided to cut it. By the way, I should have kept buying NVIDIA. I should have never sold NVIDIA. Like, that was bad decision. That stock from the price I was buying at has over 10x'd. It was an ELF. It was a Tesla. I had another banger on my hands, and instead I took a short-term profit in that one. I should have continued to add. Bad decision in regards to that, man. I was so smart to buy it. I was so dumb to sell it. And that happens sometimes in the market, okay? Now, for this particular stock, we got some major competitive risk that has come on. Major competitive risk, okay? That has happened recently that it makes the stock much more risky than it was previously, okay? So, if you haven't seen, MetaQuest got shown off last week, right? MetaQuest, I think, is going to be a absolute banger product. And this is a product that I think is going to be incredibly successful. I think it's the first product that's really going to launch VR to huge numbers and into a much bigger space than we've ever seen, especially when it comes to gaming in the VR space. I think this is going to be an absolutely massive success. To show you kind of for reference what type of success I'm talking about here, okay? Quest 2 supposedly has sold around 20 million units roughly. I think Quest 3 is going to absolutely obliterate those numbers. I think we could be looking at something between PlayStation 5 type numbers, which is about 38 million units, and maybe like Xbox One type numbers, which is like 50 plus million units. That's the type of volume I'm talking here. And when you're starting to talk about you're doing numbers that like Xbox One did, PlayStation 5 has done, you're a big player in the market, and that's what I see happening with Meta. Based upon everything I see, I think that's going to be an epic success, and it's going to take VR to places we haven't seen it go to yet in regards to gaming. Obviously, yesterday, I watched, what Apple showed off, okay? And what Apple showed off is incredibly impressive in terms of the tech side of it, right? There's no denying that. You could debate if this product's going to be a success for Apple, which I have my doubts on that, but there's no doubt that tech in that Apple product is absolutely phenomenal, right? And the product's going to be like $4,000, so it's no real major player in regards to VR gaming, but there's a potential that Apple could take a lot of the tech in this device and take a lot of the tech out of it and potentially make something that could be very successful in the gaming market that maybe comes in at an $800 price point, $1,000 price point, that could maybe be something that's very successful in the gaming realm, okay? And just, not that craziness that obviously they launched yesterday. So me seeing that definitely scares me a lot in regards to kind of thinking about the gaming space in general, and I believe VR gaming is about to take off like a rocket ship over this next 3 to 5 years, okay? And there's basically 3 big gaming, let's call it platforms, ways of doing gaming, okay? One is mobile. Mobile gaming is you on your smartphone, your tablet, things like that, okay? Then you have PC gaming, which more affects this stock, right? And if you're a hardcore gamer, you know all about PC gaming, right? And definitely PC gaming attracted a lot of my generation, the millennial generation. A lot of my generation loves to build PCs and loves to create, epic gaming PCs. So Gen Z, a certain amount of them. Next generations, I don't know. We're going to see about that, okay? And that's where I have definitely some worries in regards to kind of VR and what's taking off there. And the third platform you have is console gaming, right? PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, those sorts of devices, right? And so now we're going to have a third major player, VR gaming. Now, VR gaming is, at the end of the day, it's going to take some sort of piece of the pie away from these three. That's just the way it works, okay? If somebody's going to spend $500 on a Quest 3, that's less money for them to spend on mobile games, less money for them to spend on PC gaming, or maybe they instead of buying a PlayStation or an Xbox, they'll buy a Meta Quest, right? So there's no doubt it takes money away. It also takes time and attention away. It also takes interest away. And also, in regards to gaming market, the more people that jump onto something else, then their friends start doing that as well, right? And so think of like Fortnite, think of like a ton of the popular mobile games. Like if your friends are all into something like a Call of Duty or something like that, then you're more likely to play it as well, right? And so if there's more and more people starting to do VR gaming over this next several years, which I think there's going to be, it's going to take a level of interest away from these three. Now, does that affect 2%, 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%? That remains to be seen. We'll see, but there's no doubt it takes some effect away. And so that's why I decided to go ahead and sell some shares in a stock I hold. And that stock is Corsair Gaming, CRSR. Now, going into today, Corsair Gaming represented about 13% of the public account, right? Which made it a much heavier position than even a stock like Amazon. Which I'll be honest, I believe way more in Amazon for the next 5 years than I do Corsair Gaming. So me having over double the position sizing as a percent into something like a Corsair Gaming versus Amazon, it just doesn't make practical sense, to be quite frank, okay? I like Corsair Gaming. I'm a believer in Corsair Gaming. I think their products are phenomenal. I think their brand is phenomenal. I think Elgato is phenomenal. But there's no doubt there's risk here. And to have 13% of the public account tied up in this, especially seeing what I have seen now in what's coming as far as VR gaming, it's just way too risky to have 13% of my portfolio in that particular stock. And so I decided to go ahead and cash out a pretty fair amount of shares today. I sold 5,504 shares of the public account shares for Corsair, which means I now have, at this point in time, 5,000 shares of Corsair Gaming. I feel comfortable having 5,000 shares of Corsair Gaming, okay? You know, for the long term here, and unless the fundamentals change massively for the worse, I feel comfortable there. At the end of the day, PC gaming, people are going to continue to spend on PC gaming for years to go in the future, years and years to go in the future, right? Will they spend in 5 years as much as they spend today? I don't know about that. We'll see. But I feel comfortable being positioned there with Corsair, with their brand, with Elgato, and kind of what they got going on. But there's no doubt I wanted to de-risk that portfolio to at least a certain extent, right? Now, in regards to Corsair, this is a minor thought around Corsair. It's not like the stock's cheap. I mean, it's trading at, now keep in mind, I wouldn't be surprised if Corsair comes in with much better numbers on the EPS side than what analysts are expecting based upon shipping rates, how much those have come down, trucking rates. Obviously, Corsair is shipping physical products all around the world, right? And so I actually expect EPS to be a little better than analysts expect, but nonetheless, folks, the stock's not cheap. It's a hardware company at the end of the day. It's a hardware company, and it's trading at about 25 times 2024 numbers. So from that context, it just made sense for me to cash some of these shares. The stock's trading rich, for what it is for a hardware company, and I needed to de-risk, okay? Now, you might say, where did I put all that money? Because if I sold 6 figures worth of Corsair Gaming here today, right? Where did I put all that money? Where did all that money go, okay? And I will answer that for you guys. I will do a whole video later today. I bought several different stocks with that money. Some of those stocks are stocks I already owned. Some of them might be new stocks. And I'll disclose all that in a video maybe later tonight. So check the channel back for that one, and I'll dive into that. But yeah, always tough decisions to sell stock, folks. Always tough decisions. It's, always never easy. That's what I feel like. It's never easy, whether you're selling for a loss, a gain, anything. It's always tough, man. Always tough. So appreciate you guys joining me as always. Hey, it's a rare subject. We'll never cover this. So enjoy this one, man, because, save it to your notes or something like that so you can come back and watch in the future. Because like I said, it might be 6 months, it might be 12 months, it might be 2 years before I do another video saying I sold out 6 figures out of stock. It happens very few and far between. So much love, folks. I appreciate you joining me, and have a great day. I'll cover it in the next video. What stocks I bought? Can you guess them?